Okay. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you. You can just start the class.
Okay. Good afternoon, my beautiful learners. Um, Today we are going to look at the recap of what we have been doing so far and the natural science for grade 11. My name is Razak Seidu, and then I would like to assist you in recapping what we have been learning so far. Okay. So we can So we are going to look at the next slide. Okay, so the next slide talks about the lesson objectives. So we are hoping that by the end of this, our presentation, we will be looking at these objectives to be achieved. The first one we will like to look at will be life processes. The second one will be looking at classification of living things. The next one will be diversity of animals. Another objective that we shall be looking at is also diversity of plants. And then we shall be looking at also sexual reproduction in angiosperms. And last but not the least, we will be looking at variation. Okay. So previously, we studied life processes, and the life processes, we were told that biosphere is that part of the planet Earth where life exists. So we are also told that the biosphere consists of the lithosphere, the hydrosphere, and atmosphere, as well as other living organisms that are dead in the form of dead organic matter. Okay, so we have got different kinds of living organisms in the biosphere. Okay, and then the living things can be classified, the organisms or things can be classified as either living or non-living. Okay, so we were told that there are certain processes in which an organism or a thing can perform or carry out, then we can then qualify to either categorize that thing as either living or non-living thing. Okay, so these processes are known as the what life processes. So if an organism is living, then that organism is supposed to perform these processes. I'm talking about one, the movement, reproduction, sensitivity, growth, respiration, excretion, and nutrition. So we can say that nutrition can also be simple term as feeding. Excretion can also be looked at in terms of removal of waste product from the body after digestion has taken place, and the body has assimilated and utilized the nutrients that were found. Then we also look at respiration. Respiration here simply talks about what? Energy production. Then when we come to growth, we're still simply talking about the expansion or the increase in size or cells of the organism. Then we're talking about sensitivity. Sensitivity is how you sense you sense what is happening around your organism, the sense of touch, smell, and what have you. And then movement or locomotion is simply you are able to perform a certain activities from moving from one form to another. And then when we talk about reproduction, we are looking at the perpetuation of the human species. Here I'm talking about the male and then the female coming together to give offspring so that we can perpetuate the human species. Okay. The next one we are looking at still the next slide. So all living things need energy. They also need gases, water, soil, and favorable temperature to survive. So you can see that we as human beings sometimes, when the weather is very, 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 very cold, we need to adjust ourselves so that we can survive in the cold or when the weather is very, very hot. We also need water, just like when you are carrying out an activity, and then you are feeling thirsty, then you have to drink water. Guys, am I moving fast? Okay. All right. Then living things are best suited or adapted to the environment in which they live. So we can see that if we look at the biosphere, in which we have got uh, living organisms, or where life exists, you see that we have got different kinds of living organisms. Some are two-legged like human beings, some are four-legged like a goat and a sheep. Others have wings that can fly. And even if we talk about fish, we talk about the dolphins, we can even also talk about what snakes. So you will see that there are some of these organisms or living things that are found at a certain part of the biosphere. So if you are looking for, let's say, a whale or a dolphin, you can only find that in the ocean or the sea, because they have got certain characteristics suited or adapted for that kind of environment, and they can live successfully. Okay, we go to the next one. We also looked at, from the previous lesson, we looked at classification of living things. All right, this classification started way back before myself and you were born. And we always attribute the classification system to two renowned scientists of blessed memory. One is Aristotle, who was from Greek, and that was, we are talking about 2,400 years ago. He started by trying to classify or divide things into either plants or animals. Okay, and then he went further to also look at the animals, those that was having blood and those without blood. And he also looked at them in terms of their mode of movement or motion for animals. Then another one that we looked at was Carl Linnaeus, and we are talking about 1,700 years ago. He introduced the classification system, and then he looked at certain things in terms of similarity, the function, and the relationship with other organisms. Then he came with the binomial nomenclature to name all organisms. So this binomial nomenclature simply talks about how organisms have got two names. So bi means two, and nomenclature simply means naming. So all organisms have got a genera and then a species. For example, when we are looking at human being, the scientific name is called Homo sapien. The human being has got the genus and then the species name. Okay, so he went further to also classify other organisms. So, but recently, scientists all over have started to use the binomial nomenclature to date. Okay, so further than that, we are looking at all living organisms can be divided into 5 kingdoms. So when we are looking at classification of living organisms, so having given you uh, the bit of a history about classification. So importantly, we must take note that all living organisms can be classified into 5 major kingdoms. Hello, Pen. Is there a question there? Okay, so all living organisms can be divided into 5 kingdoms or major groups. So we can talk of one, animals, we can talk of plants, we can talk of fungi, we can talk of protists, we can also talk of what? Bacteria. So there are some books you will be you can see something like Kingdom Animalia, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Protista, and Kingdom Prokaryote or Monera. Okay, so let's look at the next. So take a look at this diagram here. It contains all the five major kingdoms and some specific examples. The list is not exhausted, but just to show you or give you an idea as to the types of organisms or living things that can be found in either animals. So kingdom animalia, you can see the elephant. When I go to plants, kingdom plantae or plants, I can see some trees and beautiful flowers. When I go to the kingdom fungi, I can see mushrooms, different types of mushrooms. Take note, we have got some mushrooms that are edible, others are not edible. Then when I go to a bacteria, I can see an amoeba and then some kind of flagella. Then when I go to a protist, I can see paramecium there and what have you. Okay, and I can also see euglena. Okay, so these are just examples that gives us an idea as to the various living things that are categorized into the various kingdoms. Okay, now let's go on. Now, as we say, in all these kingdoms, they are further divided into smaller groups. So the kingdom is the major, the largest, or dominates in the kingdom when we're talking of classification. So the kingdom is divided into smaller groups, and these smaller groups or divisions are called phyla. Remember, phyla is the plural. So when we are talking of a single or one, we are looking at what? Phylum. So kingdom is divided into what? Phyla, and in each phylum we also have what? Subdivisions, other subdivisions called classes. Then we have got from classes, the classes are also further divided into orders. Then from order, we go to families. Then from families, we go to genera. And from genera, we then go to what? Species. Okay, so if you look at this flow diagram, or what can I say, then you will see that we have got a summarized version. So you have got a kingdom mapping to phylum or phyla, mapping to class, then mapping to orders, mapping to families, mapping to genera, and mapping to what? Species. And in fact, you cannot change the positions of these ones. So from kingdom, you actually move. They are in linear manner. You cannot change order after kingdom. You go to order, you go to species. No. So the way they are linear, and then we have to take note of that. Okay, so for just for something to let us remember. So this is a mnemonic. Then you can, if you want to remember the flow diagram for these five major kingdoms, you can say king flip cuts open five green snakes. But sorry for those of you who don't like snakes, if I might make you a bit afraid, but that's fine. So this kind of mnemonic, you can try to, it's not an exhaustive one. You can also try to create your own mnemonic just to assist you to remember. Because when you move to the various grades, even to FET, then you have to know this one. So when you get a mnemonic for it, you will be able to remember it for good. Okay, so the mnemonic again, King Philip cuts open five green snakes. So king here is representing kingdom. Phil here is for phylum or phyla. Then class is for cat. Others, that is the open. Families will stand for five. Genera will be green, and then species will be what? Snakes. Okay, I would like to you to create your own mnemonic for me when it comes to evaluation. Okay, uh, take a look at this diagram to help us also. This one is from the kingdom up until species. So according to this diagram, you will see that the kingdom is very broad, or the surface area is big, telling us that the kingdom is the largest of all when we are looking at the classification of system. So the animals in the kingdom for any other classification will be more. So that is very general and contains many organisms, followed by the phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Okay, so if we want to say if there is a question, let's say which of the following contains many organisms, then you should take note. You should remember that it's always the kingdom when we look at this. Then the species are the smallest, and this species contains very specific and closely related organisms. So you see that we have got all kinds of animals, but when we narrow down, there are certain animals that look similar to each other, and others also look similar, but they can all be classified as what kingdom. So we have got so many animals. You can look at the elephant, the lion, the human beings, the bears, what have you. But when you come down, even if you look at the elephant family, you will see that we have got different categories, species. Some are like this, some you find these ones that are very big. Some are that are very short. But generally, elephants are big in size. But if we were going to look at a critical study, you will see that we have also got what specific species that are closely related to each other. Okay. Now let's go to the next. All right, we are looking at diversity of animals. So when we are looking at diversity of animals from our previous lesson, we look at what classification of animals. So diversity of animals will tell us that we have got different kinds of animals. And when we are looking at different kinds of animals, we are indirectly trying to classify them. These ones they look alike, they can be here. This one, they can be found here. Okay, so all animals in the world are emanating or coming from the animal kingdom, just like when we are looking at diversity of plants, then the plants will also come from the kingdom, one of the major kingdom called kingdom plantae. Okay, so when we are looking at classification of animals under this scope, we are simply looking at animals that are having backbones and animals that are not having backbone. So I must say this again. Anytime we are looking at natural science under this grade and we are looking at classification of animals, just bear in mind that animals can be classified into two groups or divisions. One is called the vertebrate, then we have the invertebrate. So the animals that are having backbone are known as what? Vertebrate. Those without a backbone, they are known as what? Invertebrate. Okay, so let's go on. All right. So we are saying that the invertebrates, we also have different categorization. So the invertebrates are animals without what? Backbone. And here they are divided into what? Five phyla. We are talking about the what? The sea sponges, the jellyfish, the roundworms, the mollusk, and then the what? The arthropods. Okay. I'm sure you remember those things when we were looking at them last week or before. Okay, then when we look at vertebrates, as I said, vertebrates are organisms that are having what? A backbone. And they are also subdivided or classified into five classes. So here we are looking at the fish, we are looking at the what? Amphibians, we are looking at the reptiles, we are looking at the base family, and we are looking at what? Mammals. All right. Then I've got a diagram here for you again. All right, so you can see that on my right-hand side, I've got the what? The invertebrates. And then on my left-hand side on my screen here, I've got the what? The vertebrates. So if you look at them, they all have their names. For example, if I'm looking at reptiles, a typical example would be a crocodile. I have seen another example there, but I don't want to mention it. I don't know whether some of us were scared of snakes. Okay, all right. Sorry to mention it. Then when we are talking about the amphibians, we are looking at frog. Then when we are looking at fish, we are looking at the sharks family and what have you. Then when we're looking at the arthropods, you can see Mrs. Spider there and beautiful flower there, and then the crab. All right. Then when we come to the starfish, you see, this is, it looks like a star. Then we look at the what? Mollusks. Then we have got the what? The snail. And then we have the octopus. You remember the octopus in 2010 World Cup? There was an octopus that they was trained to predict when anytime there was a match, it was trained to predict the one who was going to win. Then we have mammals. You can see the human being there. You have the rat. We also have the elephant. Then when we talk about the birds, you can see the blue crane and then the ostrich as well. Then the other invertebrates, you can see the jellyfish, the sponge, and then the animal. Okay, all right. So I hope it gives you a nice view as well in terms of vertebrates and invertebrates. Okay, then we look at what? Diversity of plants. Okay, so when we also look at diversity of plants, we are simply looking at what? How plants are classified, or in simple terms, we are looking at what? Classification of plants. So here, plants can be grouped according to how they reproduce sexually. Okay, so when we are talking about plant diversity, we are looking at plants that are having seeds and plants that are not having seeds, or we can say seedless plants. Okay, so when we are looking at plants with seeds, these are a group of plants that produce seeds. An example is the maize. That one by the wayside, they can either boil or roast it fresh. Okay, so you can see that this is when you dry them, when they are fresh, you dry them, and then they are good ones. You can replant them, and then you can get you nurture them, and you can get your maize again. They can either produce. So when we are talking of plants with seeds, they can either produce seeds in flowers or they can produce seeds in cones. Okay, so we are saying plants that produce seeds in flowers are called angiosperms. And plants that produce seeds in cones are called what? Gymnosperms. Okay, so we must take note of this diversity of plants. So here, when I'm looking at diversity or classification of plants at this stage, we are looking at what? Plants that will have seeds or will produce seeds and plants that will not produce seeds. So we have got seed, seeded plants or seedless plants. Okay, now let's continue. So we're just looking at what? The previous slides was telling us about the different categorization. So let's look at seedless plants. So seedless plants are plants that do not produce seeds. They do not produce seeds. An example include the ferns, the mosses, and then the algae or algae. Yeah. All right. So sometimes if you have gone to Pretoria Botanical Gardens, it's a beautiful place for you to see these things. I have been there with some learners, and it's a nice place to go. So you can see your algae, your ferns, your mussels very well. So this, okay, so let's continue. These plants produce spores. The spores often develop into structures found on the other side of the leaf or fronds. These spores grew into new plants. Okay, but just a reminder, those of you who might not be capable or able to go to Pretoria Botanical Garden, anytime you see a stagnant water, when I mean stagnant water, water that is not moving, for some time you see the surface of the water is changing color. Sometimes you can see that it's green, sometimes it depends. It can be a bit reddish, mixed color, then we are talking of the algae or algae. Okay. All right. Now let's look at this mind map. So it's just a kind of a diagram that will assist us to answer some questions. So we have got plants. So if I've got a plant and then it say, does it produce seeds? If it is yes, then it is classified as what? As a seed-bearing plant. Then if the answer is no, then it means it's not a seed-bearing plant. It produces by spore. So we can simply say spore-bearing plant. Okay. All right. Now the seed-bearing plants, we can also go further to say, does it produces in flowers or in cones? So take note. So this is a categorization again. So from plants, we have got seedless plants, we have got seeded plants. And under seeded plants, we can also go on again. Those that will produce flowers are known as what? Angiosperms. And those that will not produce flowers, but they are cones, are known as what? Gymnosperms. Then when we come to angiosperms, then we are looking at what? Number of cotyledons. Okay, so I have left this space there for you to answer. So when we are looking at angiosperms, if the number of cotyledon is one, what is the term or what do we give to that? There is a particular term for that. And then if the number of cotyledons are two, what term is given to that? Okay, then when we come to the spore-bearing plants, examples, we have got the ferns, we have got the moss, and we have got the algae. Okay, all right, let's now I can somebody simple tell me what we have been learning so far? Okay, all right. So I'm going to start from the bottom here. Looking at the mind map here, I said when we're looking at angiosperms, a type of plant that produces seeds, when it comes to the plants, they have a number of cotyledons. Okay, so if one of them, if that type of plant is having a one cotyledon, what is it called? So I want you to post your answer. So an angiosperm with one cotyledon is known as what? You send me your answer through the chat, and then an angiosperm with two cotyledons. What is the term there? Okay. All right. And then listing also how many types of classification do we have in plants? Or what are the two types of classification in plants? Okay. Just a moment. Okay, so let's go on. Then also the next question I want you to answer for me is name the two scientists that contributed a lot to classification of living things. Okay, so you have, then when you are done, okay, so let's go on. What is the largest, okay, when we look at the five major kingdoms and then their divisions, okay, you remember Miss Kinfield, which of them between, is it the order, the family, or the species that has got more living organisms, that contain more living organisms? Okay. All right. Yeah, I can see that that's very good. Um, I've taken notice of Devon. You are right. You said kingdom. Uh, Ndazalma, you are also correct. Juan. All right. Yeah, you have asked a question. Joan, you said that the family or species have more living organisms. Yeah, the family has got more living organisms if you compare to the species. So when you move in from the kingdom, you go kingdom family in that order. All right. I can also see that Ntogozo, you also got it right, but Ntogozo, just check. I've seen that there is a small letter omitted. Yeah, I thought that was a question. Another question. Okay, now let's go on. Mention two examples under kingdom animalia. Two examples, kingdom animalia. All right. Ntogozo, I understand. Don't worry. We are in the land. Yes, thank you very much. Devon, that's correct. Elephant and lion. Okay. All right. Let's go on. Another examples: mammals and reptiles. Reptiles. Amo. I said two. You gave me one. Okay, that's good, but you can still do better. Okay, let's go on. Give me five. Okay, let me say five examples king and the kingdom animalia. Five examples and the kingdom animalia. Yeah, birds, that's one. Joan Madude. Yes, that's correct. Naidu. I said, give me five examples and the kingdom planter. We have moved ahead. Yeah, some of you are correct. Okay. All right, so let's go on. I said, this is the message. Give. Okay. Okay. All right. Now, I've posted a question there. I said, how many kingdoms? Give five examples of living organisms that are found under the kingdom Plantae. And then I've also answered, somebody said, how many kingdoms do we have? We have 5 kingdoms. Okay, all right. Let's look at yeah, we were at give 5 examples. Give 5 examples of living organisms that are classified under kingdom Plantae. Okay. Okay, guys, we have got um, 3 minutes left. I have been impressed by your responses. Oh, hello, you can post your last questions. I have sent a question there to say, I've asked the question before. I said, what is the term given to a flower with 1 cotyledon?